Harvey Dent previously made 2 appearances in Batman the Animated Series to pave the way for this origin story. It kicks off with Harvey in a dream, which is a perilous thing to put in a work, as the fact it is a dream can make things too on the nose, or as Babylon 5 showed, goofy. The usefulness of dreams for fiction is the peek into the subconscious in order to convey things that normally could not be otherwise. However, to peer into our thoughts is to be exposed to a degree of intimacy and vulnerability in a character that can't be achieved otherwise, and that power is difficult to wield. Two-Face, however, is a masterclass in using it in a manner that is succinct, subtle, and extremely atmospheric. Flipping a coin takes on such an ominous quality. As I said, it's a peek into the subconscious, and that flipping coin says much about Harvey Dent. Seeing it flipped like that, one can almost sense it is a distilled chess game with death, a contest for the soul where there is no strategy or skill, only luck. After he wakes up from his unplanned nap, he heads out to where Commissioner Gordon is carrying out the raid that Harvey has been preparing. The bad guys are well armed. That's the problem when you're raiding a place where they're smuggling weapons. In fact, they pull out a bazooka to deal with the cops, so it's lucky that Batman arrives first. Luck that Batman arrived before they had the chance to blow up the car that Dent was hiding behind, rather than after. Harvey soon speaks to the press about how this is the latest in his campaign, that is, his campaign against crime, not his campaign for re-election, although they kind of overlap a bit. His campaign to deal with Richard Thorne, whom he asserts is behind the crime ring that he just broke up. It looks good, until a mook talks tough and kicks mud on his suit, and suddenly Harvey completely loses it and starts roughing the guy up. And frankly, there's being tough on crime, and then there's beating a man in handcuffs. Okay, I suppose some might still think that's just being tough on crime, but it does look bad. I think qualified immunity only lets you get away with 7 or 8 kicks to the gut these days. Gordon gets Harvey to snap out of it, and it is like snapping out of it, like a switch is flipped and the maniac just goes away. Thorne sees it as nothing more than a chance for Dent to up his re-election campaign's turnout, and his crusade is so problematic that killing Dent would only make things worse. Better to make Dent one of his stooges. His words unwittingly speak to the contrast in Harvey that he doesn't know exists.
The brighter the picture, the darker the negative.
Bruce sponsors a fundraising event for Harvey, as they're old friends, but speaks to Harvey's fiancée, Grace, about his worrying behavior. Have you noticed anything else strange lately?
Can overturn the fool. He's been blocked, like all the rest.
Anything come to mind? Harvey has just learned the judge threw out the case. The warrant was incomplete. Harvey thinks the judge was crooked, which in Gotham I wouldn't bet against. He almost throws a punch at Bruce, so in private Bruce suggests maybe seeking professional help. Well, Grace says actually he already is.
Well, I for one am proud of you, and relieved. It takes a strong man to admit when he has a problem.
I'm relieved to know that you could look at your life and say, I need help. Well, I'd love to talk more, but I've got to go collect my bat costume. But don't look at me like that. I don't wear it all the time, only when I'm a detective. The hardest part is recognizing that it is just treatment. If someone went around on a broken leg or with weeping sores on their face and said, a real man toughs it out, well, that'd be absurd. Why should the fact that it exists in the mind change anything? On the contrary, if anything, you're doing something harder because there's not pain exists to tell us something is wrong. But when treatment is needed for the mind, there's often no mechanism in place to tell us that help is needed. So choosing to seek out treatment often requires acting without stimuli motivating it. Just an understanding of self. Complicated because the mind that must reach that conclusion may itself be compromised not to see it. I have been around enough to tell you that complete insanity can be spoken with a sincerity that will make you question whether or not you're the one who's crazy. At the session, Harvey is put under with hypnosis and asked if Big Bad Harv can come out. He immediately begins flipping a coin during the session, while the psychologist explains that Harvey had issues with anger growing up, but felt guilty that he had issues with anger. So much so that these repressed feelings were effectively pushed into a version of Harvey that he considered distinct from himself. After Big Bad Harv smashes up the place, she suggests perhaps spending a few days in a psychiatric hospital. But that would be too much, so they'll just try to focus more on these sessions to get him through this.